A lottery ticket worth $127 million should have changed my life forever. It did, but not in the way anyone expected, because the moment it vanished, my sister told me it was a death sentence. The silence in my apartment was so loud, it felt like an explosion. Every tick of the clock on the wall was a hammer blow against my skull. Outside, the city hummed along, oblivious. People were heading home from work, thinking about dinner, complaining about traffic. Normal people, living normal lives. My life had stopped being normal exactly 1 week ago, and now it felt like it was over. In front of me, on the coffee table, sat a hollowed-out book. It was an old leather-bound copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, a gift from my late father, and inside its carefully carved-out cavity, where a piece of paper worth $127 million should have been, there was nothing, just dust and the faint smell of old paper. My heart, which had been performing a frantic drum solo for the past hour, suddenly felt like a cold, dead stone in my chest. Let me back up. My name is Alex. I'm 32 years old, a graphic designer who spends most of his life moving pixels around a screen for ungrateful clients. My existence has always been modest. My apartment is small, my car is 10 years old, and my biggest financial goal for the year was to finally pay off my student loans. Every Friday on my way home from work, I have a little ritual. I stop at the same corner store, buy a lukewarm coffee and a single mega jackpot Jubilee lottery ticket. I always played the same numbers. My birthday, my sister's birthday, the year our parents passed away, and our old house number. It wasn't a strategy. It was just a small weekly tribute to the life I had. A $2 daydream. I never, ever expected to win. But last Friday, I did. I was sitting on my couch scrolling through the news on my phone while the TV droned on in the background when the winning numbers flashed across the screen. I didn't even look up at first. It was only when the newscaster said, "And the single winning ticket was sold right here in the city at a corner store on Elm Street," that my blood turned to ice. My corner store. I fumbled for the ticket in my wallet, my hands shaking so badly I could barely read the numbers. I pulled up the lottery website on my phone, my breath caught in my throat. I checked the numbers. Once, twice, 10 times. They matched, all of them. The grand prize, $127 million. You see moments like this in movies. People scream, they jump up and down, they spray champagne. I just sat there in my silent apartment and started to laugh. It was a weird, unhinged sound that quickly turned into something that was half sob, half gasp for air. It was impossible. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I was the guy who got stuck behind the person with 50 coupons at the grocery store. I was the guy whose flight was always the one that got canceled. And now, I was a multi-millionaire. The sheer, ridiculous scale of it was too much for my brain to process. After the initial shock wore off, a different feeling crept in, a deep, profound sense of caution. I'd heard the horror stories, people who win big and are broke in 5 years, long-lost relatives crawling out of the woodwork, the lottery curse. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell anyone. Not yet. Not until I had a lawyer, a financial advisor, and a solid plan. I signed the back of the ticket, took a dozen pictures of it, and then hid it in the safest, most personal place I could think of, inside my dad's old book. The only person I came close to telling was my sister, Chloe. She's 2 years younger than me, and we're all each other is left. She's a whirlwind of chaotic energy and questionable life choices, and I've bailed her out of more financial scrapes than I can count. But she's my sister. Her heart is in the right place, even if her wallet is always empty. I love her more than anyone. Several times over the past week, I picked up the phone to call her, the words "I won" on the tip of my tongue. But each time, I hesitated. I imagined the conversation, the well-meaning but terrible advice, the requests for just a small loan to start a cat cafe or an alpaca farm or whatever her latest dream was. I decided to wait. I'd get everything in order, set up a trust for her, and then surprise her. I'd change her life, too. I just needed to do it the right way. The past few days, Chloe had been acting strange. She'd been over at my apartment a couple of times, which wasn't unusual, but her behavior was. She was jumpy, distracted. She kept asking weirdly specific questions about my finances, if I was happy at my job, if I ever thought about just packing a bag and leaving everything behind. I brushed it off as typical Chloe flakiness. Yesterday, she asked to borrow my laptop, saying hers had died. She was on it for about an hour in my spare room before leaving in a hurry, barely saying goodbye. It was odd, but I didn't think much of it until tonight. I was feeling that giddy, secret thrill again, and I just wanted to look at the ticket, to hold the physical proof that my entire life was about to change. I walked over to the bookshelf, pulled down The Count of Monte Cristo, and my world fell apart. It was gone. The ticket was gone. Panic, white hot and blinding, seized me. I tore my apartment apart. I emptied every drawer, checked under every cushion, searched every pocket of every piece of clothing I owned. Nothing. It was a methodical, desperate search that slowly gave way to a cold, sickening certainty. It hadn't been misplaced. It had been taken. And there was only one other person who had been in my apartment. Only one person who had ever seen me hide things in that book when we were kids. My sister. No, it couldn't be. My mind screamed in denial. Chloe? My Chloe? Steal from me? It was unthinkable. A betrayal so profound I couldn't even wrap my head around it. But then, like a series of horrifying puzzle pieces clicking into place, it all started to make sense. Her strange questions, her jumpiness, her needing to use my laptop. With a sense of dread so heavy it felt like I was moving through water, I walked over to my laptop and opened it. I went straight to the browser history, and there it was. Search after search from yesterday afternoon. How to anonymously claim lottery winnings. Best countries for expats with no extradition. Lawyers specializing in large asset transfers. Emergency expedited passport application. And the final soul-crushing search, made just minutes before she'd left my apartment. A confirmation page for a one-way flight to the Cayman Islands, departing tomorrow morning. The name on the ticket was Chloe Miller. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. It wasn't just theft, it was a plan. A meticulous, cold-blooded plan to steal my future and vanish from my life forever. I grabbed my phone, my fingers numb and clumsy, and I called her. She answered on the second ring, her voice breezy and casual. "Hey bro, what's up?" I couldn't speak. I could only make a choked, broken sound. Her tone changed instantly. "Alex, are you okay? You sound weird." I finally found my voice, but it was a stranger's voice, low and dead. "You need to come over, Chloe, now." She was at my door in 15 minutes, a look of fake concern plastered on her face. "Alex, what's wrong? You scared me." I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside and let her in. I gestured towards the coffee table, where the hollowed-out book sat like an open wound. She saw it, and for a fraction of a second the mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, not guilt, but raw, unadulterated fear. She looked back at me, her face pale. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stood there letting the crushing weight of her betrayal fill the space between us. I waited for the excuses, the lies, the story about how she was just holding it for me for safekeeping. I was ready for a fight. I was ready for tears. But I wasn't ready for what she did next. She met my gaze, her chin trembling slightly, but her eyes holding a strange, chilling resolve. She took a deep breath, and the words that came out of her mouth shattered the last remaining pieces of my reality. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just looked me straight in the eye and said, with a terrifying calmness, "I did it to save your life, Alex. That money is a death sentence." A death sentence. The words hung in the air between us, so absurd, so completely disconnected from reality, that for a moment I thought I was hallucinating. I let out a sharp, ragged bark of a laugh. It was a horrible sound, devoid of any humor. A death sentence? You stole $127 million from me, booked a one-way ticket to a tax haven, and you're telling me you did it to save my life? Is that seriously the best you could come up with, Chloe? My voice was trembling with a rage so pure it felt like it was going to liquefy my bones. I wanted to shake her, to scream in her face until the lies stopped, but I just stood there, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of it. "Alex, please," she whispered, taking a hesitant step towards me. Her eyes were wide, and for the first time I saw that the fear in them wasn't about being caught. It was something deeper, something colder. "You have to listen to me. This isn't a story. It's a warning. It's what happened to Mom and Dad." The mention of our parents was a low blow, a sucker punch to the gut. They died in a car crash when I was 18 and she was 16. A patch of black ice on a winter road, the police report had said. A tragic, senseless accident that had ripped the heart out of our world and left us to navigate the wreckage alone. "Don't you dare bring them into this," I snarled, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Don't you use them to justify this betrayal. It's not a justification. It's the reason," she cried, her composure finally breaking. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't bother to wipe them away. "You were older, Alex. You didn't see the little things. I did. The hushed phone calls Dad would take in his study, the way Mom would jump every time a car slowed down on our street, the new alarm system they had installed just a month before they died. You remember they told us Dad made a really good investment that year? That's why we were finally going to take that trip to Italy? I nodded slowly, a knot of confusion tightening in my stomach. I remembered. It was the happiest I'd seen them in years. It wasn't an investment, Alex. It was the lottery. He won. Not as much as you, but it was a lot. Almost $2 million. I stared at her, my mind reeling. What are you talking about? They never said anything about winning the lottery. Of course they didn't, she shot back. They were terrified. Dad wanted to keep it a secret, to plan everything out, just like you did. He kept a journal, Alex, a little black leather book he hid in his desk. After the accident, when we were cleaning out the house, I found it. I've kept it all these years. She fumbled in her oversized purse and pulled out a small, worn, leather-bound book. It looked ancient. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'd never seen it before. She opened it carefully, the pages yellowed and brittle with age. Her finger traced a line of our father's familiar, neat handwriting. "Listen to this," she said, her voice shaking as she read. October 12th. The numbers came in. God help us. They came in. This is a blessing, but it feels like a curse. I see them everywhere, in every shadow, every car that passes twice. She flipped a few pages. October 28th. A man came to the door today, said he was from the Winner's Circle Foundation, offering financial advice. There was something wrong with his eyes. When he left, I saw him sitting in his car down the street for an hour. M was hysterical. Mammy, Mom. My mother's name was Mary. November 5th. They know. I don't know how, but they know. They called again. They didn't ask for money. They just said they know about the blessing and that they would be coming to collect their share. They said it was the price of good fortune. The air in my apartment had grown cold, thin. Every word she read was like a drop of ice water on my skin. This was insane. It was a grief-fueled fantasy she had concocted, a story she'd told herself for 16 years to make sense of the senseless. It had to be. "Chloe, this is..." I started, but she cut me off, her eyes blazing with a desperate fire. "The last entry, Alex, the day before they died. Read it." She pushed the journal into my numb hands. The date was scrawled at the top. November 14th. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. He came back, the man with the dead eyes. He didn't come to the door this time. He was just there at the end of the driveway when I got home. He smiled at me. He told me to have a safe trip. They sabotaged the car. I know it. There's no other way. If anything happens, this can't get to CNA. This money is a magnet for monsters. This can't be their life. CNA, Chloe, and Alex. I sank onto the couch, the journal feeling like a block of lead in my hands. It couldn't be real, and yet vague, fuzzy memories started to surface from the depths of my mind. A strange car parked down the street. My mother crying on the phone and hanging up abruptly when I walked into the room. My father angrily telling a man on our doorstep to get off his property. I had been a teenager, wrapped up in my own world. I hadn't connected the dots. I just assumed my parents were fighting. What if they weren't? What if this nightmare was real? "So you stole my ticket," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "You were going to run." "No," she insisted, kneeling in front of me. "I was going to cash it anonymously through a shell corporation in the Caymans, then put the money in an account so far offshore and under so many layers of protection they could never find it. Or you. It would take years, but it would be clean, safe. I was trying to protect you from them." "From who, Chloe?" I yelled, the confusion and fear boiling over back into rage. "From who? A ghost from a 16-year-old diary? A boogeyman you invented?" "He's not a ghost, Alex," she said, grabbing my laptop from the end table and frantically typing. She spun the screen around to face me. It was a news article from a week ago about the State Lottery Commission launching a new community outreach program. And there, in the photo, standing next to the lottery director, was a man in a sharp suit. He was older now, with silver hair at his temples and lines around his eyes, but the face was one I suddenly remembered with a chilling, gut-wrenching clarity. It was the man from our driveway, the man who had been at our house right before our parents died. Chloe pointed a trembling finger at the caption beneath the photo. "His name is Marcus Thorne," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's the new head of Winter Security and Advisory Services for the State Lottery. His job is to be one of the first people to make contact with the grand prize winners." The face in the photograph stared back at me, a phantom from a 16-year-old memory. Marcus Thorne. The name was meaningless, but the face was a key, unlocking a dusty room in my mind I hadn't entered in years. I remembered him now, Not just at the end of the driveway, but on another occasion too, a school fundraiser. He'd been there talking to my father, his hand on my dad's shoulder in a way that looked friendly from a distance, but now, through the lens of this new, terrifying knowledge, seemed proprietary, possessive. I felt a wave of nausea so profound I had to grip the edge of the couch to keep from falling. My father's journal wasn't a product of grief-stricken paranoia. It was a chronicle of his own death sentence. "They're not just thugs, Alex," Chloe said, her voice a strained whisper, as if the man in the picture could hear us through the screen. "It's a system, a parasite. I've spent years digging ever since I found the journal. It was just a horrible suspicion at first, but then I started looking into other big winners from our state. You'd be amazed how many of them end up in unfortunate accidents or lose everything in high-risk investment schemes managed by the same handful of shell companies, all of which, if you dig deep enough, trace back to financial groups Thorne was involved with. He preys on them. He finds them, isolates them, advises them, and then bleeds them dry. And if they resist..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The ghost of our parents filled the silence. I finally looked up from the laptop, my eyes meeting hers. The anger was gone, evaporated by a cold, numbing fear. In its place was a terrible, crushing guilt. For 16 years, I had seen Chloe as flighty, irresponsible, a little broken by our parents' death. I'd been her self-appointed protector, the stable older brother. But I'd been blind. While I was building my quiet, safe life, she had been living with this monster in the shadows, carrying this secret, trying to protect from a truth she knew I wasn't ready to face. Her frantic, desperate plan to steal the ticket wasn't an act of greed. It was an act of love. A reckless, terribly executed act of love. "Chloe, I couldn't form the words. I'm sorry. I believe you. Thank you." They all felt so small, so inadequate. She just shook her head, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on her cheek. "There's no time for that. We have to figure out what to do. The flight leaves at 7 a.m. "No," I said, my voice gaining a sliver of its old authority. My mind, which had been a fog of panic, was beginning to clear, the gears starting to turn. As a designer, my job is to find elegant solutions to complex problems. This was the most complex problem of my life. Your plan is a non-starter. Cashing a check for $100 million, even in the Caymans, lights up every financial watchdog on the planet. They'd find you, and by extension, they'd find me. Running is what they expect. It's what our dad wanted to do. We can't run. We have to hide." "Hide where, Alex?" she asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "This isn't a game. Thorne is the head of Winner Security. As soon as the ticket is claimed, he will know the winner's name. Your name. He'll have your address, your social security number, everything. He will walk right up to this door with a big smile and a giant cardboard check, and the trap will be set." "Then I won't claim it," I said simply. "Not yet." The lottery rules gave me 180 days. 6 months. 6 months to become a ghost. 6 months to build a new identity, to create a life so far removed from Alex Miller that when the money finally surfaces, it will lead to a man who doesn't exist. "We need the ticket back, Chloe. Where is it?" A look of genuine panic flashed across her face. I couldn't keep it on me. It was too risky. I hid it. "Where?" I pressed, my heart starting to pound again. "In a locker at the bus station downtown. I have the key right here." She patted her pocket. "The city bus station. A place with 1,000 people coming and going, but also a place crawling with security cameras." It was sloppy, but it was better than it being in her pocket. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay, first thing tomorrow we get the ticket. Then we disappear. I have some cash saved. We'll rent a car, drive a few states away, find a motel, and we plan. We create a whole new identity for me, a new history. We find a lawyer Thorne has no connection to, someone out of state, someone who specializes in witness protection level anonymity. We can do this." For the first time all night, a flicker of hope appeared in Chloe's eyes. The fear was still there, but it was no longer all-consuming. We weren't just victims anymore. We were fighting back. "Okay," she agreed, nodding. "Okay, Alex, we do it your way." We spent the next hour in a flurry of quiet, purposeful activity. Chloe canceled her flight. I started wiping my laptop, my phone, anything with a digital footprint. We packed 2 small go bags with essentials. Cash, a change of clothes, burner phones I'd bought a while back for a freelance project and forgotten about. The whole time we spoke in hushed tones, as if Marcus Thorne himself was standing outside the door, listening. Every creak of the floorboards in the apartment above, every siren in the distance, made us both jump. The city, my home, no longer felt safe, It felt like a cage, and we were acutely aware that the hunter was circling. As I was erasing the hard drive on my main computer, a news alert popped up on the screen before it went blank. It was from a local news channel. Mega jackpot Jubilee winner still at large. Lottery officials urge winner to come forward. The article mentioned the winning ticket was sold at the Elm Street corner store, and that the Lottery Commission was eagerly awaiting the lucky winner to claim their prize. They were looking for me. The hunt had officially begun. "We need to go now," Chloe said, her voice tight with anxiety. "Forget waiting until morning. We get the ticket and we leave tonight." She was right. The longer we stayed here, the smaller our window of escape became. I grabbed my keys and my wallet and we headed for the door, the two small bags slung over our shoulders. We were fugitives, running from a prize that was supposed to be a dream come true. I put my hand on the doorknob, took a deep breath, and was about to turn it when the doorbell rang. The chime was so loud in the silent apartment, it felt like a gunshot. Chloe and I froze, staring at each other, our faces masks of pure terror. My heart leaped into my throat, beating a frantic, suffocating rhythm. I crept towards the door, my body trembling, and looked through the peephole. My blood ran cold. Standing on my doorstep were two people, a man and a woman, both wearing bright blue polo shirts with the official state lottery logo embroidered on the chest. They were smiling, beaming with professional cheerfulness. The woman was holding a ridiculously large gift basket wrapped in cellophane, and the man was holding a giant novelty cardboard check. And written on the line where the name should be, in bold black marker, were the words, "Our newest winner." The world as I knew it ended in the distorted fish-eye lens of my peephole. The man and woman on my doorstep were smiling, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. They looked like predators who had finally cornered their prey, their professional cheerfulness a grotesque mask for something cold and predatory underneath. Behind me, I heard Chloe let out a tiny choked gasp. We were trapped. The hunter wasn't circling anymore. He was at the door, and he hadn't come alone. My mind raced, frantically trying to process how this was possible. How could they know? I hadn't claimed the ticket. I hadn't told a single soul. Was the corner store owner in on it? Did he have cameras that recorded who bought what ticket at what time? Or was it something simpler, more insidious? Had Chloe's online searches from my laptop yesterday, her frantic digital footprints about claiming winnings and disappearing, triggered some kind of alert? Had her panicked plan to save me inadvertently led the wolves right to my door? The doorbell rang again, a longer, more insistent chime this time, followed by a sharp rap of knuckles on the wood. "Mr. Miller, Alex Miller, it's the State Lottery Commission. We have some wonderful news for you." The man's voice boomed, oozing a synthetic friendliness that made my skin crawl. Chloe grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my bicep. Her eyes were wide with a terror so absolute it mirrored my own. We were cornered in a tiny apartment with our go-bags packed, looking like we were about to flee. There was no way to explain this. No plausible lie. "We know you're in there, Mr. Miller," the woman's voice called out, sweeter than the man's but with an edge of steel just beneath the surface. "Your neighbor, Mrs. Gable from 3B, saw you come in an hour ago. We just want to congratulate you." Mrs. Gable. The sweet old lady who always brought me cookies on holidays. They had canvassed the building. They were being thorough. They weren't going away. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. If I opened the door, the trap was sprung. If I didn't, they would get suspicious. They would call the police for a wellness check, or maybe they wouldn't even bother with the pretense. They might just break down the door. I looked around my small living room at the packed bags, the wiped laptop, the hollowed-out book still sitting on the coffee table like an open wound. The evidence of our panic was everywhere. Then, an idea, a desperate, insane gamble flickered in the chaos of my thoughts. It was a terrible plan, full of holes and reliant on pure, dumb luck. But it was the only plan I had. I put a finger to my lips, signaling for Chloe to be silent. I backed away from the door, pulling her with me towards the kitchen, which was out of the direct line of sight from the peephole. "They don't know for sure," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "They suspect. They're fishing. We have to give them a reason to believe they're wrong." She looked at me, her face a canvas of confusion and fear. "How?" "Just follow my lead," I mouthed. Then I took a deep, shuddering breath, and I yelled, my voice cracking with manufactured frustration and anger. "Chloe, for the last time, give me my keys back. I'm not giving you another dime. It's over. I'm done bailing you out." I grabbed a stack of pots from the kitchen counter and threw them onto the floor. They crashed with a deafening metallic clang that echoed through the apartment. Chloe stared at me, her eyes wide, but a flicker of understanding dawned. She was a quick study. She picked up a ceramic mug and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered into 100 pieces. "You can't do this to me, Alex!" she shrieked, her voice a perfect blend of desperation and rage. "After everything I've done for you, you owe me!" Outside, the knocking stopped. There was a moment of dead silence. I could almost feel them on the other side of the door, listening, re-evaluating. We had to sell it. "I owe you nothing," I roared back, shoving a chair over for good measure. "You steal from me. You lie to me, and you have the nerve to ask for more. Get out! Get out of my apartment before I call the cops!" I stormed back towards the door, making my footsteps heavy and angry. I fumbled with the locks, making it sound like I was struggling with them in my rage. I flung the door open. The man and woman from the Lottery Commission took a startled step back. Their professional smiles had faltered, replaced by expressions of shock and awkwardness. I stood there breathing heavily, my hair disheveled, my face a carefully constructed mask of fury. I glanced over their shoulders down the hallway as if looking for my fleeing sister. "What do you want?" I snapped, my voice dripping with irritation. The man cleared his throat, adjusting the giant check in his hands. Mr. Alex Miller?" "Yeah, what of it?" I said, not giving him an inch. "We're from the State Lottery Commission," the woman began, her smile looking strained and painted on. "We have reason to believe that the winning ticket for the Mega Jackpot Jubilee was sold to a resident of this building, and your name was suggested as a regular player." "A regular loser, you mean?" I scoffed, running a hand through my hair in a gesture of pure exhaustion. "Look, as you can see, you've caught me at a really, really bad time. My sister was just here, trying to get money out of me again. We had a huge fight. I'm really not in the mood for any of this." I gestured vaguely at the chaos visible behind me in the apartment. Their eyes darted past me, taking in the overturned chair and the shattered mug on the floor. Their expression shifted from suspicion to something like pity. They saw exactly what I wanted them to see. Not a multi-millionaire about to flee the country, but a stressed-out guy with a dead-end job and a leech of a sister, his life a mess of financial and domestic problems. I was the exact opposite of a lottery winner. "Oh," the man said, looking deeply uncomfortable. We're very sorry to have intruded." "Yeah, well, you did," I said bluntly. "So unless you're here to tell me my $2 donation finally paid off, which we both know it didn't, I'd really like to be alone." I stared them down, challenging them, daring them to call my bluff. The woman held up the gift basket. "It's just a promotional thing we're doing for all the regular players in the area where the ticket was sold." "Great," I said, taking the basket from her without a word of thanks. "Consider me promoted. Now, if you'll excuse me." I started to close the door in their faces, but just before it latched, the man spoke again, his voice casual but his eyes sharp, analytical. "Just one more thing, Mr. Miller. Your sister. Chloe, is it? We noticed she seemed to be in a real hurry leaving the building just now, almost as if she was running from something." My blood turned to ice. Chloe was still in the apartment. He was lying. It was a test. He was watching my face, my eyes, looking for any flicker of panic, any sign that I knew he was lying. This was the final move in the chess game. My reaction now would determine everything. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic prisoner trying to beat its way out. He was bluffing. He had to be. Chloe was 10 feet behind me, hiding in the kitchen, probably holding her breath so hard she was about to pass out. There was no way they could have seen her leave. This was the moment, the final crucial test. If I hesitated, if my eyes flickered towards the kitchen, if I showed even a fraction of a second of confusion, it was over. They'd know. So I did the only thing I could. I leaned into the persona I had created. I let out a bitter, joyless laugh. "Running? Yeah, that sounds about right," I said, shaking my head with the weary resignation of a man who had seen this show 1,000 times. "She's probably running to the nearest bar to spend whatever cash she managed to lift from my wallet when I wasn't looking. Or maybe she's running from a loan shark. With Chloe, you never know. It's a new drama every week." I met the man's gaze directly, my eyes holding nothing but a deep, convincing exhaustion. I let the silence hang for a beat, letting my story sink in, letting them picture the chaotic, pathetic life of Alex Miller. "Look," I sighed, gesturing with the gift basket, "I appreciate you guys doing your job, but I've got a mess to clean up and a massive headache. So good night." I didn't wait for a response. I closed the door firmly in their faces, making sure the deadbolt clicked into place with a loud, final thud. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door, my entire body trembling. I counted to 60 in my head, each second stretching into an eternity. I heard their muffled voices in the hallway, then the sound of their footsteps retreating towards the elevator. Only then did I let out the breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. It came out in a ragged, shaky gasp. Chloe emerged from the kitchen, her face pale as a sheet. "I thought I was going to die," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My heart... Alex, I think my heart stopped." "Mine too," I admitted, sliding down the door to sit on the floor, my legs suddenly unable to support me. The gift basket toppled over, spilling gourmet crackers and a bottle of cheap, sparkling wine onto the rug. We had done it. We had stared into the abyss, and for now, the abyss had blinked. They had bought it. They had looked at the mess, the anger, the despair, and they had seen a broke, miserable man, not a secret millionaire. They would cross my name off their list. They would move on to the next regular player in the building. We had bought ourselves some time. "But it's not enough," Chloe said, her mind already racing ahead, the immediate fear being replaced by a more strategic anxiety. "They're in the building. They'll be talking to other neighbors. What if Mrs. Gable mentions I came over yesterday, too? What if they see us leave with the bags? They'll put it all together. We can't walk out the front door." She was right. We were still in the cage. Leaving now was just as dangerous as it was an hour ago, maybe more so. They were on high alert, their professional senses tingling. They would be watching the building. "The fire escape," I said, my gaze drifting to the window in my small living room. It was an old, rusty metal structure bolted to the side of the brick building, overlooking a grimy back alley. It was a classic movie escape plan, a cliché, but it was our only option. "We go down the back. It will lead us out to the alley behind the building, a block away from the main entrance." We moved with a renewed sense of urgency, the adrenaline from our close call still coursing through our veins. We put the overturned chair back, gathered our go-bags, and I grabbed the heaviest coat I owned. It was a cool night, but that wasn't why I needed it. At the window, I slid the old wooden sash up with a groan of protest. A gust of cool, city-scented air filled the room. The fire escape was right there, a rickety-looking ladder to freedom. "Okay," I said, turning to Chloe. "You go first. Be quiet. Don't look down." She nodded, her eyes wide but determined. She slung her bag over her shoulder and climbed out, her sneakers making a soft scraping sound on the metal platform. I watched her start her descent, her small frame silhouetted against the glow of the city lights. Then I turned back into the apartment for one last look. It was small, it was cluttered, but it was my life for the past 10 years. My home. And I was leaving it, maybe forever, running from a fortune that was supposed to solve all my problems. I threw my bag out onto the platform and started to climb out after Chloe. My foot was on the windowsill when my eyes fell on the coffee table, the gift basket, and next to it the giant novelty check they had left. An idea, another wild, reckless gamble, sparked in my mind. It was a long shot, a message in a bottle thrown into a hostile ocean, but it was better than nothing. "Wait!" I hissed down to Chloe, who had paused a few rungs below. "I'll be right there." I scrambled back into the apartment and grabbed a black permanent marker from the pen cup on my desk. I knelt by the check. I had to leave a trail, but not for them. A trail for the right people, for someone who could fight a monster like Marcus Thorne. I flipped the giant check over to its blank white cardboard back. My hand was shaking, but my thoughts were clear. Who do you turn to when the people meant to protect you are the ones hunting you? You turn to the public. You turn to the press. I started to write, my words fast and messy. "My name is Alex Miller. I am the winner of the 127 million mega jackpot jubilee. I am writing this because I am in fear for my life. The State Lottery Commission, specifically a man named Marcus Thorne, is not what it seems. They run an extortion ring. My parents, Robert and Mary Miller, won a smaller lottery 16 years ago. They were murdered for it, their death staged as a car accident. I have my father's journal as proof. They are after my winnings now. I am going into hiding to save my life. If anything happens to me or my sister, Chloe Miller, investigate Marcus Thorne and his winner security program. Don't let them get away with it again." It was everything. The accusation, the proof, the motive. It was a declaration of war. I propped the check up on the coffee table, the message facing the door, a silent accusation waiting for whoever found it. The police? The building manager? It didn't matter. It was out there now. "Alex, what are you doing? We have to go." Chloe's panicked whisper came from the window. "I'm coming!" I yelled back. I took one last look around, and then I climbed out onto the fire escape, pulling the window down as much as I could from the outside. The cold metal felt slick beneath my fingers. I started to climb down, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and a strange, exhilarating sense of defiance. We were no longer just running. We were fighting. The alley was dark and smelled of wet garbage. We landed softly on the pavement, our bags in hand. We didn't look back. We half walked, half ran to the end of the alley and peered around the corner. The street was empty. The lottery official's car was gone. For a moment, it seemed like we had made it. We were free. We started walking quickly towards the main avenue, where we could disappear into the late-night crowds and find a cab. We were a block away from my apartment, then two. The adrenaline was starting to fade, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. We did it, Chloe breathed, a small, shaky smile touching her lips. We actually did it. Just as she said it, a long, black sedan that had been parked halfway down the block suddenly flickered its headlights on. It pulled away from the curb, its engine a low, menacing rumble in the quiet night. It didn't speed. It just moved slowly, matching our pace, its tinted windows like the eyes of a shark. My stomach plummeted. They hadn't left. They had been waiting. They had known. I grabbed Chloe's hand and we broke into a run, our bags banging against our backs. The sedan accelerated smoothly, keeping pace with us effortlessly. We turned a corner, running blindly, our only thought to escape. We found ourselves on a deserted side street lined with warehouses and shuttered storefronts. It was a dead end. We spun around, gasping for breath, and saw the sedan blocking the only way out. The engine cut off, plunging the street into an eerie silence. The driver's side door opened and a figure stepped out, silhouetted by the car's headlights. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, and as he walked towards us, his face came into the light. It was him. It was Marcus Thorne, the man from the photograph, the man from my father's journal. The ghost from my childhood was standing 20 feet away, very much real and bathed in the cold, clinical glow of his car's headlights. Marcus Thorne didn't look like a thug or a monster. He looked like a CEO, a politician, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his suit tailored to perfection. He moved with an unhurried, predatory grace, his expensive leather shoes making soft, confident sounds on the cracked pavement. Beside me, Chloe was frozen, her hand gripping mine so tightly I thought my bones would snap. All the fight, all the adrenaline drained out of me, replaced by a cold, heavy sense of absolute finality. This was it, the dead end of a dead-end street, the end of the line. Thorne stopped about 10 feet from us, a polite, almost pleasant smile on his face. It was the same smile from the news article, the same smile I now remembered from my father's fundraiser all those years ago. It was a mask, and behind it, his eyes were flat, empty, devoid of anything remotely human. They were exactly as my father had described them. Dead eyes. "Alex, Chloe," he said, his voice smooth as polished stone. "I was so hoping we could avoid all this unpleasantness, running, hiding. It's so terribly dramatic, don't you think?" He spoke as if he were scolding two children who had misbehaved, a tone of mild disappointment that was infinitely more terrifying than any overt threat. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my own voice a hoarse croak. I instinctively stepped in front of Chloe, a pathetic, useless gesture of protection. "What I want?" Thorne chuckled, a low, dry sound. "That's a very direct question. I appreciate that. I want what I've always wanted, order, a smooth transition. I run a business, Alex, a very successful, very discreet business. Your father, bless his soul, was difficult. He didn't appreciate the value of a good partnership. He wanted to do things his own way. He was emotional, sentimental. It made him a liability." Every word was a confirmation, a casual admission of guilt that twisted the knife of our 16-year-old grief. He wasn't just admitting to extortion, he was admitting to murder, and he was doing it with the detached air of a manager discussing a poorly performing employee. "You killed them," Chloe whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of terror and white-hot rage. Thorne's smile tightened slightly. "Unfortunate accidents happen when people refuse to listen to good advice. Black ice is such a tragic, unpredictable thing." He took another step closer, and I could see the glint of a heavy gold ring on his finger. "But we don't have to repeat the mistakes of the past, do we? You two are smarter than that. I can see it. Your little performance for my associates back at the apartment, very clever, very convincing. You almost had me." "So the act didn't work?" I asked, a cold dread washing over me. "The fight, the mess." "Oh, it worked beautifully on them," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "They're just employees, good at following instructions. But I've been in this business a long time. I know the signs. The daughter, with a history of financial trouble, suddenly books a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands the day after the winning numbers are announced. The brother, a quiet graphic designer, suddenly has packed go bags in his closet. It's a pattern. a desperate, predictable pattern. "I knew you had the ticket before I even knocked on your door. I just wanted to see what you would do." He had been playing with us. The entire encounter at the apartment was a test, a game to gauge our intelligence, our resourcefulness. And we had walked right into it. He hadn't sent his people away. He had sent them to circle the block to wait for us to make our move. He knew we would run. "So what now?" I asked, my voice flat. "You take the ticket and we walk away? Is that the deal?" Thorne's smile widened, becoming something truly reptilian. "Almost. You see, there's a problem, a complication. My associates, upon their return, decided to do one last sweep. They persuaded your building manager to let them into your apartment for a final check. And they found your message." My heart stopped. The giant cardboard check. The desperate scrawl accusing him of murder. My declaration of war. I had just signed our death warrants. "That," Thorne said, his voice losing its pleasant tone and taking on a razor's edge, "was a very, very stupid thing to do, Alex. It elevated this from a simple business transaction to a matter of personal security. You've made a threat. You've created a loose end, and I do not tolerate loose ends." From behind him, the passenger side door of the sedan opened. Another man got out, a large, broad-shouldered silhouette. He didn't have Thorne's elegance. He was pure, brutalist architecture, a block of muscle stuffed into a suit. He walked around the car and stood beside his boss, his hands clasped in front of him, his presence a silent, deadly promise. "Here's what's going to happen now," Thorne continued, his voice calm and methodical. "You are going to give me the key to the bus station locker. Then, you and your sister are going to get into my car. We're going to take a little drive out of the city. A tragic story will emerge in the coming days. A brother and sister, distraught over their mounting debts and family problems, decided to end it all. It's a sad story, but a believable one, especially after the fight your neighbors heard." It was a perfect plan. He wasn't just going to kill us, he was going to erase us, using the very story we had invented to save ourselves as the foundation for our murder-suicide narrative. The message on the check would be found, of course, but it would be dismissed as the desperate, paranoid ramblings of a man on the edge. He had thought of everything. My mind was a blank wall of sheer, unadulterated terror. There was no escape, no clever plan. We were going to die here, in this filthy alley, and the world would swallow the lie whole. I looked at Chloe. Her face was a mess of tears, but her eyes were fixed on something just behind Thorne. Her expression was strange. It wasn't just fear. There was something else there. Confusion. Disbelief. "It's a shame, really," Thorne said, taking a final step towards us. He extended a perfectly manicured hand. "The key, please. Let's not make this any more difficult than it needs to be." I didn't move. My feet were rooted to the spot. My life was narrowing to a single point. This man's outstretched hand. I felt Chloe's grip on my arm tighten, and she made a small, almost imperceptible shake of her head. What was she looking at? What could she possibly see in the darkness behind them that offered any shred of hope? I followed her gaze. At the far end of the alley, where it met the next street, a single flickering light source had appeared. It looked like the flame from a cigarette lighter, and next to it, a dark shape began to resolve itself from the deeper shadows. It was a person, a woman. She was leaning against the brick wall, watching us, and as my eyes adjusted, I saw she wasn't alone. There were three other figures standing with her, silent sentinels in the dark. They hadn't been there a moment ago. Where had they come from? Thorne hadn't noticed them. His focus was entirely on us, on the completion of his transaction. "The key, Alex," he repeated, his voice laced with impatience. "Now." As he spoke, the woman at the end of the alley took a slow drag from her cigarette, the orange tip flaring brightly. Then she dropped it to the ground, crushed it under her heel, and took a step forward into the faint streetlight. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, with a stern face and short graying hair. She was wearing a simple dark pantsuit, and she moved with an air of absolute, unshakable authority. She cleared her throat, and the sound, though not loud, echoed in the silent alley like a judge's gavel. "Marcus," she called out, her voice sharp and clear, cutting through the tension. "That's quite enough. Let the children go." Thorne froze, his hand still outstretched. He turned his head slowly, his mask of calm composure finally shattering into 1,000 pieces. The look on his face was not fear. It was something far more potent. It was the shock and disbelief of a king who has just been checked by a pawn he never even knew was on the board. The arrival of the woman and her silent entourage changed the physics of the alley. The air, which had been thick with our impending doom, suddenly crackled with a new, volatile energy. Marcus Thorne, the man who held our lives in the palm of his hand, looked utterly, profoundly shaken. He slowly retracted his outstretched hand, his eyes locked on the woman at the end of the alley. The name he spoke was barely a whisper, a sound of pure disbelief. "Camilla." "It's been a long time, Marcus," the woman, Camilla, said, her voice devoid of any warmth. She and her 3 companions began to walk towards us, their footsteps measured and synchronized, the sound echoing off the brick walls. They weren't police. They didn't have the uniforms or the swagger. They moved with the quiet, disciplined economy of soldiers, or something far more discreet. Her companions, 2 men and a woman, were dressed in similar dark, functional clothing. They were specters emerging from the shadows, their faces impassive, their eyes constantly scanning, assessing. Thorne recovered quickly, his shock hardening back into a mask of cold fury. "What is the meaning of this? You have no jurisdiction here. This is my operation, my prize." His words were directed at Camilla, but his eyes darted nervously between her and her silent team. The big man standing beside him, the silent enforcer, shifted his weight, his hand subtly moving inside his suit jacket. "Your operation is over," Camilla stated, not as a threat, but as a simple, undeniable fact. "You've become sloppy, Marcus, reckless, leaving a trail of unfortunate accidents across a decade. Robert and Mary Miller were a mistake. This," she gestured toward Chloe and me, "is a liability we will not allow." My mind was reeling, struggling to catch up. Who were these people? How did they know our parents' names? How did they know about Thorne? They weren't here to save us, not in the way a hero saves someone. This felt different, colder. This was one predator being taken down by another, and Chloe and I were just the bait caught in the middle. "This is a private matter," Thorne snarled, taking a half step back towards his car. "A business affair. You have no right—" "We have every right," Camilla interrupted, her voice cutting through his like a scalpel. "When you win the lottery, you don't just win the state's money. You win our attention. We are the true winner's circle. We are the reason the system remains stable. We are the financial advisors, the tax lawyers, the trust fund managers that winners are recommended. We provide a service. We protect the asset, and in return, we take a percentage, a significant but fair percentage. It's a clean, symbiotic relationship." She stopped about 15 feet from Thorne, her team fanning out slightly, a human wall between us and him. "But you, Marcus, you were never satisfied with a percentage. You wanted it all. You went off book. You became a poacher on our preserve. We've been watching you for years, waiting for you to make a mistake big enough to justify intervention. And tonight, you did." She looked at me, her eyes sharp and intelligent. "Your message on that check, Alex, that wasn't just a desperate plea. It was a signal flare. It confirmed everything we suspected. You didn't just create a loose end for yourself. You created one for our entire organization." The pieces were clicking into place, forming a picture more vast and terrifying than I could have imagined. This wasn't just Thorne. Thorne was a rogue agent, a cancer within a much larger, much more sophisticated organism. This secret society, this shadow lottery commission, they didn't kill their winners. They farmed them. They were parasites, yes, but they were careful not to kill the host. Thorne was just a greedier, more brutal kind of parasite. "So what now?" Thorne asked, his voice low and dangerous. "You expose me. Expose all of us. You'll bring the whole thing crashing down." Camilla actually smiled, a thin, humorless curve of her lips. "Don't be ridiculous, Marcus. The public can never know about us. The system is too valuable. No, there will be no exposure. There will simply be a change in management." In a movement so fast I barely registered it, Thorne's large bodyguard pulled a gun from his jacket. But he was too slow. 2 of Camilla's people moved in a blur. One of them disarmed the bodyguard with a brutal, efficient twist of his arm that resulted in a sickening crack of bone. The other slammed the man's head against the side of the sedan with a dull, wet thud. He slid to the ground, unconscious. It was over in less than 2 seconds. It was silent, professional, and horrifying. Thorne didn't even flinch. He just watched his man go down, his face a mask of cold resignation. He knew he was beaten. "The key, Alex," Camilla said, her attention now fully on me. Her voice was calm, but it was an undeniable command. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely get the small key out of my pocket. It felt like a cursed object, the source of all this misery. I held it out, and the 3rd member of Camilla's team, the other woman, stepped forward and took it from my palm, without a word. her touch cool and impersonal. "What about them?" Thorne asked, nodding his head towards Chloe and me. "They know. They're a liability now, too. You can't just let them go." "You're right," Camilla agreed, her gaze unreadable. "They do know, and a choice must be made." She turned to face us, her expression serious. "Alex, Chloe, you are in a unique and unfortunate position. You have seen behind a curtain you were never meant to know existed. Because of Marcus's indiscretions and your own father's unfortunate history, your case requires a more hands-on approach." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle in the cold night air. "You have two options. Option 1, we give you a new life, new names, new identities, a modest but comfortable stipend for the rest of your days. You will disappear. You will never speak of this or of us to anyone. You will forfeit the entire winnings, and you will live quietly." My mind struggled to grasp it. A new life. Disappear. Forfeit the money. After everything, to walk away with nothing but our lives and a gag order enforced by a shadowy cabal? It was a bitter pill to swallow. "And option 2? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Camilla's gaze was intense, her eyes seeming to pierce right through me. "Option 2. You get the money, all of it. You claim your prize, and we will be your advisors. We will protect you. We will help you manage your fortune, grow it, and ensure your absolute security. You will live the life you dreamed of when you bought that ticket." It sounded too good to be true. A fairy tale ending handed to us by the very monsters who had been haunting our lives. There had to be a catch, a price. "What's the price?" I asked, my voice full of suspicion. Camilla's thin smile returned. "There's always a price for power, Alex. The price for this life, for this protection, is that you come to work for us. You become part of the system. We have a vacancy now, you see. We need a new face for our winner security program. Someone with a story, a sympathetic, trustworthy face to greet the new winners and guide them into our fold." She looked me up and down, a chilling, appraising look in her eyes. "We need a new Marcus Thorne." The choice hung in the alley like a guillotine. On one side, a quiet, anonymous life in the shadows, our dreams of changing the world, or even just our own lives, with that money reduced to a meager stipend and the constant gnawing knowledge of what we'd lost. On the other, the keys to the kingdom, a life of unimaginable wealth and influence, but at the cost of our souls. To become the very thing that had hunted us, to become the smiling face with dead eyes that greets the next unsuspecting family, to become Marcus Thorne. I looked at Chloe. Her face was pale in the harsh headlights, streaked with tears, but her eyes were clear. She was looking at me, her expression not one of fear, but of trust. 16 years she had carried the burden of our parents' secret. 16 years she had lived in the shadow of this monster. Whatever I chose, she would follow. But I couldn't condemn her to either life. I couldn't make her a prisoner, nor could I make her a jailer. There had to be another way. "No," I said, the word clear and firm, surprising even myself with its strength. Camilla raised a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Thorne, who had been watching with a detached, almost academic interest, let out a soft, cynical chuckle. "There is no no, boy," Thorne sneered. "There are only the 2 doors she's offered." "You're wrong," I said, my gaze locked on Camilla. "You said it yourself. You need a sympathetic face, someone with a story. You need a winner to run your winner security program because it provides a layer of authenticity. It makes the new winners trust you." "Your point?" Camilla asked, her tone dangerously quiet. "My point," I said, my mind racing, a desperate third option beginning to form, "is that you don't need me to be Marcus Thorne. You just need the world to think I am." I took a breath, the plan solidifying in the space between heartbeats. You want stability. You want your system to run smoothly. Thorne's brutality was a threat to that. My message on the check was a threat to that. So let's eliminate the threats. All of them. Camilla was listening, her head tilted slightly, her expression unreadable but attentive. "Here's my deal," I said, my voice gaining confidence. "Option 3, we claim the money, publicly. We do the press conferences, the giant checks, the whole media circus. We become the most famous lottery winners in the state's history. And at that press conference, with every camera in the state pointed at me, I announce my first philanthropic endeavor, a massive donation to the state's cold case department, specifically to fund a new investigation into the accidental deaths of my parents, Robert and Mary Miller, 16 years ago." Thorne's face went rigid. Camilla's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. I'll tell the world that winning this money has given me the resources to finally seek justice for them, I continued, the words flowing faster now. And then I'll announce the creation of the Miller Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing free, independent legal and financial counsel to all future lottery winners to protect them from predators and ensure their winnings are secure. We'll be the anti-Thorn, the public face of winner protection. Chloe was staring at me, her jaw slack with disbelief, a slow, dawning hope in her eyes. You can't be serious, Thorn scoffed. You'd be painting a target on your own back. You'd be a walking loose end. Exactly, I said, turning to him. And that's where your story ends, Marcus. You'll disappear tonight. Officially, you'll resign from the Lottery Commission for health reasons. Unofficially, you'll be the first case my new foundation looks into. You'll be the predator I'm protecting people from. You will become a ghost, a cautionary tale. Your name will be a whisper associated with my parents' cold case, but there will be no proof, just enough suspicion to keep you in whatever hole Camilla decides to put you in for the rest of your life. Finally, I turned back to Camilla. You get everything you want. Your renegade agent is neutralized. The Miller family, your biggest liability, becomes your greatest asset. We become your public face, your success story. Our foundation, funded by my winnings, will work. It will actually help people. And in doing so, it will serve as the perfect, unimpeachable front for your organization. Winners will come to us, trust us, and we will recommend your discreet, vetted services. We will funnel them right to you, but we'll do it ethically. No more strong-arming, no more accidents. Just a clean, symbiotic relationship, exactly what you wanted. You get your percentage, we keep the rest, and we use it to do some actual good in the world. And you will never, ever touch another winner again. The alley was silent. The only sound was the low hum of the city beyond our concrete canyon. Thorn looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Camilla was looking at me with a strange new expression. It looked almost like respect. You're offering to launder our entire operation, she said, her voice a soft murmur of revelation, to give us a legitimate public-facing front that we could never build ourselves. I'm offering to turn a protection racket into a legitimate business, I countered. I'm offering to save your system from itself, and I'm offering you the chance to do it without getting any more blood on your hands. She was silent for a long, agonizing minute. She looked at Thorn, then at her team, then at Chloe, and finally, her gaze settled on me. And what's to stop you, once you have the money and the power, from turning on us, from exposing everything? The same thing that will keep Marcus Thorn in his hole, I said calmly. Mutually assured destruction. You have my father's journal, which I'm sure your people have already retrieved from my apartment, along with my little message. It implicates Thorn, but it doesn't mention your organization. It's my insurance against him. And you, I said, looking her in the eye, will be my insurance against the rest of the world. We need each other. Our secrets will be locked in a vault and we'll both hold a key. Camilla stared at me, her mind clearly working, calculating the angles, weighing the risks and rewards of my audacious proposal. Finally, a slow, genuine smile spread across her face. It transformed her, softening the hard lines and making her look, for a moment, like a proud CEO who had just discovered a brilliant new executive. Very well, Mr. Miller, she said. It seems we have a deal. Welcome to the winner's circle. And just like that, it was over. Thorn was escorted, silently and efficiently, into the back of a different, nondescript car that had materialized out of the shadows. He was gone, a ghost before he had even left the alley. Camilla gave us a crisp nod, a businesslike conclusion to the night's horrors. My people will be in touch tomorrow to begin the process. Get some rest. You have a big press conference to prepare for. Then she and her team melted back into the darkness, leaving us standing alone in the alley, the black sedan with the unconscious bodyguard still sitting there like a strange, modern sculpture. The next few weeks were a blur. True to Camilla's word, we were guided through the process. We retrieved the ticket from the bus station locker, and the simple piece of paper felt different now. It wasn't a blessing or a curse. It was a weapon, a tool, power. The press conference was exactly the spectacle I had imagined. We stood there, Chloe and I smiling for the cameras, holding a giant check, the perfect picture of a dream come true. I made my speech, my voice steady, announcing the reopening of our parents' case and the formation of the Miller Foundation. It made national news. We weren't just lottery winners. We were a story of tragedy, justice, and hope. We never became the monsters. Instead, we built a cage for them. The Miller Foundation is real. We have a staff of the best lawyers and accountants money can buy. all discreetly vetted and recommended by Camilla's organization. We greet the new winners. We tell them our story. We warn them about the sharks in the water. We protect them. And then we guide them to Camilla's people, who now offer legitimate, if exorbitantly priced, financial services. The system is stable. The host is no longer being bled dry. Chloe runs the foundation's charitable wing, using millions of our own money to fund arts programs, animal shelters, and scholarships. She's found her purpose, turning our tainted fortune into something clean. And I sit at the head of it all, a public hero, a private partner, walking a tightrope every single day. I am not Marcus Thorne. I am the man who keeps him, and others like him, in the dark. We took our winnings, and with them, we bought our lives back. We bought justice for our parents, and in the most twisted, unexpected way, we bought our freedom, not by running from the system, but by taking control of it.